Chapter 20. Matt was living with me at the beginning of 2013 free of charge. His father stopped his rent, and that caused me an issue in the posse. Finally, I told Matt's dad, Norman, that I need more of a notice because if Matt will have to move out. I said, I just went through the death of my animal, and I need him to pay until Matt can find another job since he lost the job he had. Norman refused to pay for his son, and I said, well, I was going to take him to court if he doesn't follow through. Meanwhile, Matt would stay in the house and do absolutely nothing in trying to get work. So I filed a lawsuit against Matt's father, and the case was set 4 months down the road. Meanwhile, there was tension you could cut with a knife. Matt's dad disowns him, and me, the good Samaritan that I am, tried to get Matt motivated, but to no avail. Matt's father wouldn't reconsider helping to pay for his son's rent, leaving me in the lurch. Matt refused to look for a job, and I started to get more irritated with the whole damn situation. Meanwhile, Ellen was thrown back in jail for abusing her previous order and started doping up again. Soon as she was behind closed doors, she needed me, but while she was free as bird, didn't need my time. That act was getting old fast. Angela was talking again about buying a coffee shop and dangling the carrot about using me to run it. I told her there's none on the market, and she brought that guy's company Black and Tan Coffee again after I told it's a wasted adventure. She kept saying no, she wants to hear him out. I said, you are wasting your time, though I found it very strange that she denied she had a sister named Sheila who she spoke about in the beginning. She denied she had a sister named Shelia, which was bizarre when that's all she talked about. Then she also had a half-sister named Donna that was trailer park trash, and when Angela would ever reference someone I knew being a whore, I said, you have no room to talk because your half-sister Donna is whore. I only brought it up, though, when she would start argument with me over frivolous bullshit. Finally, the 4 months passed. Matt and I spoke to the attorney I had hired and asked Matt what his intentions were if he was going to testify against father, saying he had signed a binding contract with me, and Matt started to say he was only going to say the truth. Then I looked at him and said, what the truth is? What in your eyes? I'm not going to speak ill of my daddy? Lol. I said, he practically disowned you and left me hanging, not paying your rent. The agreement was he was going to pay it until you got another job, and you aren't making any advancements, looking for another job, and you've been living with me for free for 9 months. So yeah, again, are you going to testify against your father on this matter? Still no direct response. I nudged the attorney and said, somebody in his family has been in his ear. That following weekend, he wasn't at the house. He secretly moved out with a few of his belongings still being there. That Monday morning, the writing was on the wall. Matt came walking in the courtroom late, saying, I'm not going to lie about my father. I said, you son of a bitch, you ain't going on stand turn against me. Right then, my attorney and I agreed Matt was going to flip on me. I told Matt, you're done, and that ended our friendship right there. His family were twisted and dysfunctional garbage of a family. It was obvious Matt had someone in his ear for all of them in that bizarre waggle family he was involved. So ended his involvement in my life. Meanwhile, I was going to make a trip to catch a Cowboy game playing the Green Bay Packers. Ronnie Redacted was the lady I used for the tickets. I used her service for over 10 years until this go-around I got scammed by her. Getting to Dallas the eve of the football game, I went up to her for the tickets. She told me the tickets will be given that morning of the game. I got some sleep and arose early to get the tickets, only to be told the bus had already left for the game and I was screwed and didn't have my tickets. No answer or text. I had to take a taxi to the stadium and paid a scalper for some actual better tickets for a cheaper price. I was fuming and spitting nails, though I made the best of being stranded. I got better tickets and enjoyed the game. I found my way back to the hotel, no callback on my cell phone. I called her up and demanded for a refund on my trip. She got confrontational, and I said, "There's no reason to get that with me when I've paid good money for these tickets. I actually got better tickets from a scalper." Of course, she was going to have to reimburse me, and I let my intentions known. She got back to me saying she wasn't going to compensate me. I said, "The hell you aren't." Might have been a big misunderstanding, but I'm not paying for it, and I'm going to be reimbursed. I said, "It's the way you handle it, which was handle piss poor. You will reimburse me, or I will report you to Yelp and the Better Business Bureau. I emphatically will challenge you. Believe me, you will reimburse me." She ended up paying me back half of the amount. Later, she was arrested for not producing tickets and merchandise with others. She was scamming people left and right. She had to close her business, so she was bought out by another member of the Dallas Cowboy fan club. When her business shut down, she spent time in the big house. As well she should have. Things got turned around upside down with me dealing with a lot of shit dropped on my plate. The troll started again knowing the 2013 season was ready to get started. That fag and bitch pretending like he was in town, disguising his voice into a customer who wanted a cab. Needless to say, I was played by those bitches' shenanigans and killed an hour of my time on a random busy Friday night. I eventually caught on and was hell bent on taking legal action against that bitch. Meanwhile, more talks of a documentary restarted with Brendan Hardesty and Kenny Johnson and was planned to happen into two parts. Kevin and I were excited about this happening, and Brandon finally agreed with me to the documentary on the terms I mentioned, and I fully believed with this one stipulation it was going to be a win-win for all concerned. Around the end of 2013, Brandon and Kenny Johnson, his creative producer, met me and Kevin at the University of Richmond for the first part of the filming of the documentary. Then appear on one of live shows at the Public Access Network discussing the steps and their involvement of what was going to be created. First, the initial interview with me and Kevin was set up. Then they finished the second part at my house in the backyard and combined the parts together with at least 4 different renditions. Still trying to be clever, sliding some stuff with the trolls in which I had him remove it. There were a few rumblings throughout, because I was hell bent in getting their bullshit removed out of the documentary when the full scope on the show was not what a bunch of detractors thought that served no purpose but the comedy that Kevin and I put out for the masses, which was truly what the show was about. So a slight caption was placed in the documentary about stating them as detractors and people who were internet stalkers, and it was left at that. When it was time for me to see the final product and it was about ready to be sent to the film festivals, I gave them my blessings and creative control with my approval in releasing it. Now, during this time, Kevin and I got into a real dispute in the documentary, and it was evident that Kevin and my direction were quite different. The highlight that I pointed out in the documentary was home run that Kevin was never a target with these imbeciles, but more unhealthy obsessions to get at me and attack me relentlessly. I pointed out to Kevin that if he was targeted a quarter of the way I was attacked by the internet losers, that he would get it, or someone in his family was targeted, he would then understand. Sure enough, that scenario became true just before the documentary was released. Kevin's father was being contacted by these trolls, and they started calling him at all hours of the night trying to reach Kevin. Finally, there were rumblings throughout. Kevin's family and Kevin's sister supposedly said he should stop doing my show because of their dad being attacked by these trolls. This is what caused me to lose it with Kevin and his family. I was just incensed that an 88-year-old man who had nothing to do with it was brought into this was being attacked by these trolls. I actually called it, but I didn't want it to happen, just pointing out the obvious. Then pointing out the hypocrisy to be true where Kevin said to me that his family might not want him to do any more shows, trying to indirectly accuse me for what was going on with his dad. I went off about his sister for taking that stance with me for someone she really didn't even know. Kevin, knowing better, pointed out that he would have to follow what his family wanted because his family came first, but then quoted to say his father fought in World War II and he could handle those trolls any day of the week. Totally a walking book of contradictions. Ironically, I mentioned this on the documentary before the calls were made, and simultaneously, the documentary was released mid 2014, and Boiling Point came out between me and Kevin, ironically, mid part of the documentary, of me pointing exactly that scenario out, which caused a rift. And Kevin temporarily left my show mid 2014 because of a disagreement, his family's interference, trying to clump me to be the villain, when clearly the trolls had their hand in trying to cause that rift. So there was a period where there was no Kevin on the show and not during our summer radio shows on WCLM radio. Again, clearly not by my hand, but by the trolls' attempt in trying to cause an issue between me and Kevin. Again, these were circumstances that these bitches caused, indirectly proving a point that I made to Kevin on the actual documentary. The documentary was released summer 2014 and the trolls started to bitch about it, saying it was slanted my way, condemning it. I really didn't give a rat's ass because it wasn't about them, it was about me and my show. Sean Brennan started making videos trying to cause issues with me and Kenny Johnson. I told Kenny and Brandon the best thing to do is not answer any of their emails. The documentary is done. Of course, that son of bitch, Sean Brennan, had to do his own critique of the documentary and bastardize it with his own version. This son of bitch kept stealing my material. In practically every show that was done, he tried to critique it with an unhealthy obsession, and I didn't want him to associate with any of my work. The more videos he did that I knocked down, he tried to get them put back up. Then took the approach to try and knock down my work for actual the same thing I got his revisions of my show removed. He tried to say he owns it, when he didn't own jack shit. Any show with the Gorgeous George Show logo and any show with my face he would put up in Suck Series versions. This is why bitch was being sued, and was sued for a few times, still in his manner of stealing my material, not caring about my own affiliation to this work and my legitimate ownership to the work. This bitch was getting out of hand, recruiting more lame-ass bitches, while some of their own was defecting on Team Gigi, which was a change of pace. Through this period as well, Brennan had my landline number and kept calling, leaving messages on it. Obviously, he wasn't that bright because I called back his number he called from and spoke at length to his mother. She told me that her husband and her are highly disappointed and disgusted in him. She broke down on the phone, crying on the phone, saying that he beats her and had no control over her son's temperament and behavior. She also admitted that when she had him, she had a drinking problem and caused him to be born a little messed up. Learning disability and somewhat of a brain normality, which definitely explains a lot what caused him to act the way he did, being obsessed with another man across the states.